All right, so now let's look at this fourth passage for the test. He says that a singular fatality has ruled the destiny of nearly all the most famous of Leonardo da Vinci's works, two of the most important who never completed obstacles having arisen during his lifetime, which obliged him to leave them unfinished. So basically, he had to leave a few of his works unfinished. That's what we are talking about. And what are these works? He's told about the Sforza Monument and the wall painting of the Battle of Anghiari. So while the third picture of the Last Supper at Milan has suffered irredeemable injury. So irremediable is something that you can come back from. So this is not it's an injury that you cannot come back from, that you cannot redeem from. Okay, from decay and repeated restorations to which it was recklessly subjected during the 16th and 17th and 18th centuries. Nevertheless, no other picture of Renaissance has become so well known and popular throughout the copies of every description. So basically, although this picture was subjected to repeated restorations because of the decay that it went through, this picture was the most well-known picture of the Renaissance period. Vasari says, and rightly, in his life of Leonardo, that he labored much more by his word than in fact or by deed. That means he spoke too high of himself and he said some things about himself that he could not really do or prove. Okay. And the biographer evidently had in his mind the numerous works of the manuscript in which he had been preserved to this day. Right. To us, now it seems almost inexplicable that these valuable and interesting original texts should have remained so long unpublished and indeed forgotten. It's certain that during the 16th and 17th centuries, their exceptional value was highly appreciated. This proved not merely by the prizes which they commanded, but also exceptional interest in which has been attached to the change of ownership of merely a few pages of a manuscript. So basically, we can understand that these books, were very, very valuable, not only because of the price that they had at that time, but also that a few pages could also be transferred in ownership. Okay. That notwithstanding this eagerness to possess the manuscript, their contents remained a mystery, can only be accounted for by the many and great difficulties attending the task of deciphering them. Okay. So it was not only hard to access them, but also hard to decipher them. The writing is so peculiar that it requires considerable practice to read even a few detached phrases, much more to solve any with any certainty the numerous difficulties of alternative reading and to master a sense of connected whole. Vasari observed with reference to Leonardo's writing, he wrote backwards. Okay. So basically, what has happened, he is not being writing straight. Okay. And he's writing it in a very weird format. So that anyone who is not understand it. Yes. So what does this mean? This means that anyone who's not so used to reading them cannot really understand them. The aid of a mirror in reading reversed handwriting appears to be available only for the first experimental reading. Speaking from my own experience, the persistent use of it is too fatiguing and inconvenient to be practically advisable. So apparently they gave a mirror in reading, okay, which can be reversed. So he put a mirror and he can read it. But that was more taxing. That was more, challenging. And as after all, Leonardo's handwriting runs backwards, just as all Oriental characters run backwards. That is to say, from right to left, the difficulty of reading direct from the writing is not insuperable. Okay. So it was not hard to measure the difficulty of reading just from seeing the writing. This obviously peculiarity in writing is not, however, by any means the only obstacle in mastering the text. Leonardo made use of another orthography peculiarity himself. He had a fashion of amalgamating several short words into one long one, or again, he would quite arbitrarily divide a long word into two separate halves. Added to this, there's no punctuation whatever to regulate the division and construction of sentences, nor are there any accents.
and the reader may imagine that such difficulties were almost sufficient to make the task seem a desperate one to a beginner. So basically, there were a lot of challenges to read Leonardo's writings. It's therefore not surprising that the good intentions of some of Leonardo's most reverent admirers should have failed. Leonardo's literary labors in various departments of both art and of science were those essentially of an inquirer. Hence, the analytical method is that which he employs in arguing out his investigations and dissertations. The vast structure of his scientific theories is consequently built up of numerous separate researchers, and it's much to be lamented that he should never have collected and arranged them. His love for detailed research, as it seems to me, was the reason in almost all the manuscripts the different paragraphs appear to be in utter confusion, and one of the same page observations on the most dissimilar subjects follow each other without any connection. So basically, what's he saying? This guy was an inquirer. He liked to find out new things. Hence, everything is written in an analytical format. Now, even though he's written it in analytical format, he has written it in a manner wherein the first paragraph does not really understand or agree with the second paragraph. There's a lot of confusion around this part. Okay. A page, for instance, will begin with some principles of astronomy, the motion of Earth, then comes the law of sounds, and finally some percepts as to color. Another page will begin with his investigation on the structure of intestines and end with philosophical remarks as to relations of poetry to painting and so forth. Leonardo himself lamented this confusion, and for that reason, I do not think the publication of texts in the order in which they occur in the originals would at all fulfill his intentions. No reader could find his way through this labyrinth. Labyrinth is a maze. Leonardo himself could not have done it. Okay? All right. So basically, what's he saying? He's saying that Leonardo's works are much more harder to read and understand because of the various techniques that he has employed. Not even Leonardo himself could have understood them in the order that they were presented. Okay, let's go to the first question. The first question says, which of the following was not stated as a reason for why Leonardo's works remain unpublished for so long? Now we know that this answer is supposed to come from the third, paragraph, correct? So let's look at it. The work is difficult to read because of Leonardo's writing and idiosyncrasies. Yes, it's been told. The writing is difficult to decipher. Yes, this also been told. Given its exceptional value, access to its contents were restricted to the elite. No, this has not been told anywhere in the passage. Different topics were mixed together. Yes. Now this has also been told. So all this we can get from the third paragraph itself. So our answer should be C. Okay. All right.